Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today.
So we keep talking about risk. Where would you guys start in educating your peers, yourselves, on risk, how to rate it, identify it, rate it, and so on?
That feels like a Brent question.
Well, that's a massive question. We always, I look at from a risk perspective with every client, or when we're partnering with MSPs, or whether it be, we're doing forensic cases and we're testifying. We have to get a background similar to what Recording Future does, and let's get a 360-degree grasp of who are the players in this organization. Most of the time, we see the C-suite individuals. Their lack of understanding or technical astuteness creates a vast majority of the risk for the organization. What is the culture of the company? Seriously, that's a question that we leave in the dust oftentimes. I see other data security firms do that. We've had the unique experience when we didn't plan on this being a revenue stream for us, but it directly relates to this. Control and Protect has partnered with, or actually been retained by, risk analysis firms all across the country.
And I just want to throw out there that I'm sorry. You stopped talking. I thought you were done, but it was your connection, I think.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to throw out there. I tossed a book recommendation from John in the chat. Full disclosure, yes, it is an affiliate link. So, but feel free to check that out, guys. Thank you very much. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, so you were talking about where we should start, Brent, when it comes to starting to educate ourselves and our peers.
I just think it's important that from a risk standpoint, we have to look at, we start with cyber insurance to begin with. I think that's very important, but then the end user security awareness training, obviously we all know the stats, but if we're talking about cyber risk, phishing attacks are over 90% of the attacks, data security breaches originate there. So that's an easy one, if we say it real fast. But remediating that and preparing and putting the layers in place that are consistent and compliant with whatever framework and the new insurance paradigm that's being pushed and enforced fed to the end user with these questionnaires, is email phishing is a big part of it. So I think there are a few key areas of risk that, from an MSP perspective, there are a few buckets. If we check these boxes, if you will, then we're in good shape. I would certainly recommend the culture, analyzing the culture of the end user and their corporate organization. What threats have they already incurred, or compromises have they had in the last 24 months? And then looking into those threat intelligence areas to see what's out there. To me, that's a fundamental beginning for risk. And that's why we use the insurance. I hate to go back to that, but it's a very good, I guess you'd say, origination point to start pursuing the summit, right? And developing a cybersecurity program. So if you develop a cybersecurity program from the beginning with each client, by default, you're covering that risk.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
How do we drive the culture where risk is what's driving security and not compliance? Unless I'm completely off base on thinking that's how it should be.
You're not off base at all. No, you're not off base. And that is, man, I struggle with this every day, every week, and my entire team. What's just enough to get us compliant, right? Let's check the box.
Actually, I can answer that question for you. And Eric, you're going to laugh because you know where I'm going with this. To check that box, you don't need to do anything other than say, I've identified the risk and I accept the risk. And that is your low barrier of entry for compliance.
And we say that because we went through some MSP channel people. You know what? Whatever. I'm going to throw the shade. I don't care. MSP Overwatch. If you go talk to John over there, he'll tell you, you have a certain level of controls to go through, but you could just accept the risk and move on. So she would literally ask him, was like, so I could just say, okay, I accept the risk of all these controls and I'm MSP Overwatch certified. And he kind of stumbled around. I was like, well, no, you can't really do it that way. But, all these controls have the same way. Oh, this is an acceptable risk. Really? Okay. What's the impact of that acceptable risk?
And I think that's why self-attestation needs to die.
It's bullshit. It'll give you, so I don't think a company should stay in self-attestation. Like we're going through CMMC. I've talked about that because we're going after that space. I don't mind doing a self-attestation because the amount of money I'm going to be freaking end up paying for this stupid thing. I'd rather take the time, go through the process and do what I got to do to make sure I'm there. And, I mean, granted, we don't have all the auditors that we need to get to freaking do that. So even when I'm ready, I'm still probably waiting a year just to be audited. But nobody should stay in self-attestation by any means.
I think self-attestation should get you your interview or your schedule date for an audit.
Good point. I like that.
All right. So we've touched on a lot of things, guys. Man, we've touched on a lot of things. and
we barely shit on Kaseya.
Well, only 40 minutes worth.
Well, if I could say one last thing, I think
is it
one
about
of the biggest
Kaseya?
areas to directly answer this is a true gap analysis. That's skipped so many times. I mean, so we just start saying, oh, well, you need Huntress and you need EDR and so we start, we see MSP, they start product pushing, right? Boom, boom, let's check the box. Oh, you're in, we see this and I hate this all the time. Well, have you run a compliance tool so we can do rapid fire compliance? I mean, man, that is the most widely spread. It's unreal. Those guys are making major money with that tool, right? But it's only 2 inches deep.
Brent, I have a question.
2 inches deep is 7,000 pages
of FUD. But here's the problem with a real gap analysis run by MSPs. It will highlight
that's right.
their inadequacy.
Thank you. Yes.
So that's why it's never done properly.
Never do it. Yep. That's why they'll never do it. That's something we run into all the time. Is when we show up and start doing risk analysis, gap assessments, like the very first thing coming out of the client's mouth is like, well, why wasn't our MSP doing these things? Yeah. And it's the hardest thing in the world to sit there and say, well, technically it wasn't their job and that's not their fault and we aren't their enemy. And the process lives or dies on how the MSP responds to that.
But there is one added piece of that, Zach. Sometimes the client doesn't want to pay the MSP to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, not sometimes. Most of the time.
We'll call the client out for that too. It's just like, did they offer this to you? Well, yeah, but we can't afford it. And like, there you go.
Identify and accept the risk.
Yep. And 9 times out of 10 that what they could not afford before, when we get involved, they have a bottomless freaking pit of money all of a sudden. Like, we can afford all this stuff. Really?
Well, it sounds like we've gone around the barn to basically say, as an MSP, an MSP should look in the mirror and ask themselves, who is hardening their security standards? Because they must clean their house up properly and be compliant. They do need to be utilizing and pulling from multiple resources and aligning themselves. I like what you said, Shiva, about partnering. It's alignment and get prepared to pay that. Well, these guys have been racking up. I mean, I know some MSPs that do very well. They do very well. They run very lean, right? And they're very project focused, but they're really not compliant, right? They're not compliant. And that's what lets stuff like Kaseya take place. They're dependent on that one channel, that stack, that one plugin that's within their stack. And so they're heavy on it, and you can't tell them anything. They're hard headed. But unfortunately, before Independence Day, we had a lot of them eating humble pie.
One thing I would say is that despite me not caring for Kaseya, it could happen to any vendor, not just RMM.
That's
it can
right.
really happen to anyone.
That's right.
And it's going to happen to someone else this year.
Just don't be the douchebag and just sit on your freaking exploits. That's all I'm asking.
But they all do it. Kaseya is not alone there. A lot of these guys are, they're weighing risk. Do we tell our partners to shut things down while we fix it, or do we hope nothing happens?
That's the part. I think that's a part of all of this that really, really pisses me off.
If we had a trade association or self-governing body and we can decide whether or not vendors can do business with us, that's how you can hold our feet to the fire.
I like that. I love that, actually.
But that makes too much sense.
So Andy has a good point in the chat. Partnering with a larger company to help assist with security. Typically, those larger providers don't want to partner with the smaller ones. So that's why small providers tend to rely on their RMM. What do you guys think about that?
Andy's absolutely right.
For their RMM vendor.
They've got to find somebody and make it part of the process. I mean, we have to, everybody said it here. We need a fundamental change, blah, 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 whatever. But unless larger companies are willing to work with smaller, or, we'll take myself, an incident response and, pen testing company is not willing to sit down with these other companies and help educate them about the crap that we see and how to better themselves. You take people who do memory forensics and just name your vertical or specialty of cybersecurity. If they're not willing to sit down and, help educate and bring the tide up, all ships come up with a tide, whatever the analogy is, we're fucked. Well, let's just be honest.
So that's one way of looking at things.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm mean.
The other way is to just not look at things.
Yeah,
isn't that what MSPs do in general anyway?
Some of them.
Isn't that what all these fancy managed SOCs are for? To make you have the illusion of protection?
Yes.
So I will say this. We keep saying, or let me rephrase. You guys keep saying MSPs as if, all MSPs are the same. Shiva, aren't you technically an MSP?
Depends on the day.
Okay. So with that said, I mean, aren't you also throwing yourself under that same bus?
Listen, I'm not perfect. There's some things I completely fuck up.
Okay.
But I think I do a lot better in certain things than I do bad on others. I hope.
Okay. Well, I mean, just because you think you do like a super good job doesn't mean it's fine. It doesn't mean that other people are doing, or every other MSP is doing a terrible job. Okay,
no, but I think in the MSP community, there's a lot of group or hive thinking, and they're still doing that older type of MSP. Not that I know what current MSP should be doing. I just know what I do. But no one's willing to push boundaries, make changes, and understand the risk. And that's, to me, what it all boils down to. A lot of people think you can buy an RMM, you can buy an AV, whatever it is, halfway decent firewall, and any type of anti-phishing platform. And that's security to them. And now they get to add another S to their MSP and become an MSSP.
Well, adding another S.
DNS filter too. Didn't want to leave you guys out.
Thanks, guy.
Adding that extra S, I think, is where they do something foolish. You know, we know a guy who added the S, and we teased him relentlessly, and he dropped the S. And
you gotta say his name because I don't know who you're talking about.
I'm not going to do it, but you recently added him to your Slack. So with that said, I just want to say, like, there are some people who are doing things because what they think they're doing is okay. They don't know any better. And after you know, you guys were brutal and I had a private conversation, and then we all kind of came together with what we were trying to explain to him. And we basically said, look, you can't throw 37 security products onto your MSP.
40. It was 40.
It was 40.
Wow. So I don't remember the actual, I thought it was like 20 and I was just being ridiculous. Okay. You can't add 75 security products and then call yourself an MSSP, because all you've done is added more noise.
But one thing to understand with this person, and I'm not going to call him out because I do like the person.
Good. I do too. And that's why I'm not saying his name.
He has understood what we were saying. He's reevaluated, yes. And I think he's in a much stronger position than even most MSPs out there.
Absolutely. Hey, because
Can I go ahead, Pete? Can I say something positive?
This is not the podcast for positive. I'm sorry.
It usually is, I swear.
No, I think one thing you can do. I think education is the key to most of this. And one way that you can spot someone who is genuine and does know knows what they're talking about, at least is going in that direction, is who tries to educate other people as well, and tries to contribute something back into that pool of knowledge that we're all, taking advantage of. So just one thing to look for.
Speaking of education, and I do have a hard on for risk, understanding risk, and maybe this is a Brent question.
This guy.
You wanted unfiltered, you got unfiltered.
Oh, we've been pretty filtered.
That's true. I've been very reserved. But Brent,
I feel like I should make a joke here, but...
Oh, please make it.
Dude, I've seen so many Pornhub jokes already.
Oh boy,
I've refrained.
Brent, where would you recommend, without putting you on the spot, but actually putting you on the spot, for people to go to begin to understand how to recognize risk?
And here, let's put them extra on the spot.
to recognize risk.
Where to go to recognize risk? Like, is there some form of education, or what should they read? Where?
Wow. Yeah, it's an awesome question. I have gotten this question before, and ordinarily what I tell them is, begin with a competent cyber attorney, and then they look at me and go, what? What I've found is that if an MSP or a client, an end user, if I have somebody who, let's just say, I say they're in the cave, like they won't come out to see the light. Oftentimes, they look at somebody like myself or one of my guys and my sales guys, even our engineers, and probably all of us on this call, as we're just trying to sell them something. So let's put them with it. Let's look at the legal side of risk, because at the end of the day, it's either we're going to pay it, right? Why are we even looking at it? Because fundamentally, at the end of the day, when all the chips are down, what's it going to cost us? What are we going to lose? And attorneys ordinarily can part the sea there and give them the go ahead to, you need to listen to these guys. You need to. So I say begin there. Begin with your one of the easiest spots is to call your general liability. I mean, guys, let's just face it. A significant number of our audience and people that we interact with, the end user don't have any cyber insurance. They think that their general liability might pay for it. Okay, so that's a place to start. Call that person. Talk about risk. And then there are just risk assessment. There's tons of online do-it-yourself. You can download risk assessments. And actually, I just saw that I can actually I could send you something on that, but I just saw a really, really cool risk landscape questionnaire that popped up. I guess it was a little 2 weeks ago, that hit most of those easy. I said those check boxes earlier. So yeah, I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's pretty much how we do it. I mean, it's a
start, right? You got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And it never ends.
No, it doesn't never end. You do need to contact, if contact your network of people that you trust, but then I would challenge people to reach out to guys like we're on this call, who have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. At Control Alt Protect, we do a lot of risk analysis for companies that do pen tests all over the world. And hey, whether it be gap analysis, pen test, vulnerability assessments, I don't care what it is, true, security audits, they're not all created equal. And so you do need to get more than one. And I would say don't trust any one source. I mean, if you're diagnosed as terminally ill, if they're protecting your business from risk, it's no different than protecting your body from an antigen. So I think we'd like to get more than one opinion, right? So I would say do the same thing with risk.
I got a loaded question for you.
I figured you did.
Do you use an RMM in your company?
We do use an RMM. We're very selective. As a matter of fact, over 3 years ago, my business partner, Heads Lemons, our CTO, he sat me down one day. I think we were at lunch, and he said, "Brett, this RMM stuff scares me to death." Because we all know in this space that convenience equals risk, whether it's your, Alexa device in your home or it's your RMM that your MSP uses. What I will tell you is that we are very, very selective with that process. And we do vendor risk assessments, that we scrub, we ask them. And look, it's no different than anything else. There's this let's talk about VPNs, for example. There's this whole industry. Oh, I'm good. I've got a VPN. No, you don't. You don't own it. You don't control it. Where's that data housed? RMM's the same way. So where we're different is that we are nerds on steroids when it comes to redundancy and how are you ensuring that the backups cannot be corrupted and just layer upon layer. And we treat, RMMs the same way we treat every other layer. And I recently did a presentation with a large number of people, and I used the horse thief scenario. If we decide we're going to start stealing horses, all we have to do is cut 3 barbed wires on the roadside and start loading horses. That's pretty easy. But if we have to cut 8 fences to get to some livestock, to someone's horses, we're probably not going to do that because there's too many cuts at night and too many snags. And so whether it's RMM or whatever layer it is, how well have we hardened, scrutinized, and challenged that end user? So what I will say is I think that the companies, respectfully and humbly, that are in our tier are very diligent to ensure that they just don't take the next greatest. I mean, hey, we don't use Kaseya. We don't. We've never used Kaseya on there. Do we use other ones? Yeah. Have we vetted them? Yeah. Does that mean that they're immune? Heck no. I'm not going to say that.
They might be immune today.
That's right. But if we don't put all our eggs in one basket.
Does anyone on this call have a preference who use an RMM for one that's instance-based or a platform?
I will say that a platform-based one has better odds of having like DevSecOps happening. As a continuous platform, it's more modern design, more modern frameworks in place. There's a reduced risk. It doesn't completely remove risk, but it's reduced. The instance-based ones, the reason they're instance-based is because they're based on code bases from the 90s.
Well, the good news that's come from all of this is people are starting to look at your websites, guys. And Brent, Ray can't stop playing with the dots on your website. So,
hey, that's what I do in my spare time. I'm telling you, I understand. Believe me.
It's a new version of solitaire.
That's right. I love it.
I don't know about you guys, but I actually have started getting into solitaire at my old age, I'll call it. So I can beat about 60% of the games I play in under 3 minutes.
Coffee's good.
I got a question for more so John and Peter.
Okay.
What fun new shiny objects do you guys have coming to market that we're all going to go crazy for?
Oh, good question. This is awesome.
I'll let Peter first.
All right. Well, I mean, I mentioned DNS fingerprinting earlier, which from my point of view, I'm very excited about because it's really cool. It's finding stuff. I don't know anyone else is doing anything like that. And it's exciting. But to be honest, we have just got a bunch of investment and we're really going to be just doing more of the same stuff. We're going to be working on product development and we are still committed to the MSP markets. We just raised the trackers.
Don't do that. I hate channel-only vendors. I feel like you get such a myopic view of the world if you're only in the channel.
It's not the only thing we're focused on. Well, I suppose that's a bit of contradictory. What do you call it? I mean, it's not the only thing that we're looking at. But from my point of view, we're looking at threat protection. That's what I look after. So the new ways that we're doing that are the most exciting for me.
The team over at ConnectWise are creeping on us talking about Kaseya, guys. I just need you to know.
Thanks to let me get that in there. By the way, that's much obliged.
Well, they may not want to go watch this entire podcast and replay them.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a guy, Brian. He said DNS filter. Please bring SaaS application audit and control features like yesterday.
I will pass on that feedback. Thank you, Brian.
All right. So
you laugh like you've heard that request before.
Maybe once or twice.
Well, I'm on the threat protection side rather than the product development. So I may have seen it before.
Once or twice.
Probably from Brian.
All right. John, can you, one, I know the question was, what do you have coming down the pike? You know, cool new features, technology, whatever. But could you actually explain to everyone watching what it is you do and why we should call you?
Sure. I'll give the easiest explanation I can think of. The world's data is flowing to the internet, and so it turns it into a giant sensor. We started out by taking a look at that information, parsing it towards the idea of, hey, how about we aggregate IOCs and then put quality standards around it so that if you get, say, a IP or domain, you can get a risk score associated with it based on analytic factors that make sense, right? Like, I don't want to just see, I think somebody was talking about predictive versus reality. Like, a lot of people want to say, hey, if this IP address is doing risk behavior, it's actually associated with things. We have malware associated with it. If there's a domain that's directly like a C2 with something, I want to know about it. And I don't want to have to spend years trying to go through 4 or 5 different things. What's come out of that is we've actually done a lot of cool stuff. And I'll like a quick note on proactive. One of the cool proactive things that we actually do is we have, and I'll talk about cool because it's not necessarily like everybody wants it. We actually scanned the entire IPv4 space, identified, hey, we have a lot of idea of which IPs are risky and which are not. We age it out after a certain time. Let's take a look at the space and see whether or not it is like which IPs will become risky. So we created a machine learning model that'll say, hey, this IP is going to become risky likely in the next 72 hours at a rate of 75% or higher. So it's pretty accurate, but like, that's not where people are going to be focusing their energy on. So what we ended up doing is we aggregate, pull in this data, parse it, and then provide out things through like intelligence cards or API feeds that are going to go directly to things like your SIMs, things like your ticketing systems for instant response to be able to help you understand, hey, what's my threat picture right now? There's a lot of application for that outside just your general security or threat intelligence space. We do things like in our domain space. Hey, can I find out things about like leak credentials or typo squatted domains and get that ahead of time? So as we see the registration, but we also see the certificate registration. And then we can look for whether it's parked or whether it's actually going to become malicious. Like, do we see that, hey, they're doing, this seems to be typo squatted, seems to be targeted. They registered a certificate. Let's be honest, it's a Let's Encrypted certificate. And then we can start showing you that pathway. We do similar things with vulnerability by looking at dark web spaces. Are people talking about it on the dark web? Are they looking at, hey, who has an exploit or who has POC for this particular new vuln? We can look at the exploit development timeline, identify POCs on code repositories, and then even go towards like, is this actually being patched into malware, ransomware, et cetera. The cooler stuff that we're getting into is going to be in kind of furthering on those spaces. I talked a little bit about third party where we're looking at, hey, do you have proper configurations on things like SPF filter? The next part is really going to be taking that and saying, hey, where are the spaces that applies? There's two areas that I think are really cool. One is going to be identity. And when we think about it, we're like, hey, what information do you need to know to be actually secure? So we've created an API, which is, I think I could talk about it. We're launching it in like a month. But essentially what it does is saying, hey, is this credential and then that we've seen out there, is it a leaked credential, newly leaked credential? What do we know about it? Is it match things like, it'll automate some of those things like, hey, do I need to be caring about this? If the credential itself doesn't match our password complexity, we don't care about it. Or is it actively used in our directory? And then we have to be concerned about it. And what do we do with that? The other thing is we've done a bit of reporting on this, which is we call it network traffic analysis. So this NTA thing is like, it's this space between what happens between your external perimeter and adversary's control network. So we've gotten the telemetry that we're able to monitor through this space and then provide analytics that says, hey, is this appear to be someone, a C2 is connected to your network or connected to your enterprise, and it's doing more than just beaconing. Like we actually see there's network exfiltration happening by looking at it, analyzing say things like packet size and like data size. What can we tell about that? Because we have really good signature analysis of C2 endpoints, being able to do active scanning and identify them. Now we're starting to link that back and say, hey, where are the networks that are being affected by this? How can we trigger on it? How can we alert? And we've done some really cool reporting on that through, if you look at like Red Echo and Red Foxtrot, they're China-based reported because it's easier to talk about that. It's easier to focus on that, but we've had a lot of success in other areas as well. I think those are really cool areas because it takes threat intelligence outside of that just generalized feed thing that you're going to be like pulling in an IOC or pulling in like an IP domain threat feed, and really says, hey, how do we take this and make it actionable? How do we drive change in your environment? So I think it's a very fun time to be here.
Brent, how about you? What exactly does Control Alt Protect do, and why should MSPs call you?
Well, Control Alt Protect has become synonymous with cutting edge hacking detection and consulting. And we pride ourselves on our bench strength, and our alliance and partnerships. We do a lot with MSPs. We do come in and do a lot of gap analysis, or depending on the security controls they have in place, we may do an actual IT security audit. But at the end of the day, we're not the company that is going to throw you a $15,000 to $30,000 invoice to do an audit. And while we're in the middle of doing an audit, you're being attacked and, whatever. So we look at the layered security approaches. We look at your culture. We do look at your risk, and just comprehensively build a cybersecurity program for you and help you become the cyber coach, to mitigate risk and protect your end users. So, we are partners. We are not an IT company. We do not only do what an MSP does. So I always say we don't be on people's legs. That's not what we do. We're also a forensic company. We do a lot of digital forensics in partnership with legal firms. So we do a lot of expert witnessing. The insurance companies do pay us to come in and do the forensic analysis post-breach, determine how much milk has been spilled, and oftentimes, the depositions do affidavits or expert witnessing. But we really are a full service cybersecurity firm. We do cover just about it. We don't sell cyber insurance, right? But we do focus on that a lot.
And what's the messiest milk spill you've ever encountered?
Man. We worked a case.
Do we talk about the crazy ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
we did work a case where it was literally like something out of a movie. Just one of the more complex cases. Secret Service, FBI was involved. They were stumped. It was just every area you could think. I'm not sure that even their cell providers, I'll call out AT&T, was just shook their head and said, we've never seen anything like this. Every possible foothold, I think, in the book, from a private, personal identity theft perspective. So that I guess on the private sector is one that's that stands out. And I think from larger, we dealt with a huge ransomware case with a hospital and negotiating with I don't even want to say ethical hacking group. That's what the FBI says, right? I don't hate using that phrase, but negotiating with the actors to try to get a reasonable ransom payment, because they definitely had them as well as backups destroyed.
Wow,
that's pretty messy. It's messy fast. So I think those are two that stand out in my mind.
Okay. Let's pop over to Zach. Zach, what do you do, and why should MSPs call you? And can you expand on the crazy ex-girlfriend?
I actually work very closely with Brent on a lot of joint client operations. My company sort of specializes in security operations. If you remember that mind map, the yellow section that mentioned a lot of things about security operations and SIM and log aggregation and endpoint detection and response. That's kind of our specialty. And we work with Control Alt Protect that specializes in risk analysis, risk mitigation, program development. And we're the component that layers in security operations. And that's kind of what we do. We're the technical arm of risk management. And as far as the crazy ex-girlfriend, that is a long, drawn out story and involving a crazy ex, embezzled funds, possibly a stripper, and SIM swapping.
SIM card for a cell phone.
Yes.
Okay.
And, SMS interception and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was wild.
Dude, that sounds like right up my alley for fun.
But yeah, it was, it was crazy. It was horrifying. It's like, we're under NDA, so like we can't get too deep into it. But it was nuts. Like Brent said, the FBI and Secret Service were like, what the hell, man?
All right, let's hop over to Eric. What do you do, sir, and why should MSPs call you?
I'm the guy when you want somebody to give it to you straight on what the hell the problem is. So that's really neat. So,
but it sounds like you're so much of a straight shooter that I think you'll just tell every MSP, yeah, I think actually you're the problem here.
I will. I am the guy that I won't sugarcoat it, right? I just won't. So there are times that I will sugarcoat things when I am trying to protect, I guess, some layers of integrity. So we recently had a case come in front of us where the MSP, well, I won't even call it, the technologist was doing a medical facility, and they were literally changing RDP ports and thinking that was it, that they were secure. And I'm like, no, that, and literally your password being Logitech 21. No. So, I mean, seriously, what we do, we are an incident response company. So if you've been compromised or you think you've been compromised, reach out to us. If you want to know, if you want to have what's called a true penetration test, not just a Nessus scan to say, oh, well, here's some potential vulnerabilities that may be there. I mean, there's plenty of tools that are out there that will do, an Nmap scan, a Nessus scan, or something like that. I mean, if you follow, any of the things I do on LinkedIn or whatever, sometimes I get a little harsh about subdomain takeovers and, taking over, Steve's podcast, website, things of that nature. Just, when I get really, really bored and start screwing around with stuff, it's in the interest of fun, and, I don't ever do it to be malicious, but it's kind of what we do. And if you're just worried about cybersecurity, I mentioned it several times here where, getting with a company that will help put the landscape out there for you is like, where are the holes in your business? And let me help broker a communication. If it's not in our wheelhouse, let's broker a conversation with a company that will do X, Y, or Z. Then let me help broker that conversation. I mean, disclose, I don't get referral fees from many of these folks. Most of the cybersecurity firms don't do referral fees because it is a conflict of interest most of the time. So like I said, pen test, post breach remediation, consulting. And if you're just worried about your cybersecurity, go to our website, schedule a call. I'm like, literally, my website's so easy. It's like, hi, how are you? Here's my calendar. Let's book an appointment. Let's talk.
All right, Shiva, you are an MSP. So, should MSPs call you?
Sure. If you think I have something of value to offer you, give me a call. Email me.
Okay. And do you think you have something of value to offer people?
I think you know me well enough to know I would say yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell people about your company?
No, we're just a managed services provider that focuses on security. That's pretty much it.
I would say, Shiva, just that your mindset in general, your approach is refreshing for me, comparatively to a lot of the MSPs that I interact with and that we encounter. So I think that just from a perspective and a peer, sounding board, I think you offer a lot of value for MSPs that are watching this.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that.
I will actually have to agree. Shiva, you're not that bad.
If you can deal with the cursing, I guess.
Yeah. So, John had to get moving because he had, other things to do in the day. Crazy, right? And then, Peter also had to get moving. I thought this was like the most important things you guys were going to do. Shiva, what's up?
This is your first 3-hour webinar that I actually enjoy, but maybe it's because I'm on it. So
yeah, well, so far we're only at 2.5. I mean, we can keep going if you guys want.
I got shit to do, man.
I do too. And So, Peter had to get going, so he couldn't really, speak on this. So I'll do it for him. Check out dnsfilter.com. And you can also check out the podcast episode I did with them just in the last few weeks. Just go to youtube.com/RocketMSP and you'll see it in the list of recently done videos. I've been putting the email addresses up. I'm sorry, not email addresses, website addresses up as people went. So hopefully, if you guys are interested in going to any of those websites, you will be able to do that. So, with that said, does anyone else have anything else they would like to share? Eric, I'm sure you have something to share about my beard.
Yeah, that you still look like a yard gnome? Yeah. If you're going to allow me to pick on you, I think you'll still look like a yard gnome.
Yeah, I know. So I have to keep growing it for another couple of weeks by law.
By what, spousal law?
No, I'm waiting for the pastor from our church to get back from sabbatical. And then when he does, I'm going to demand that at next year's big event that we do, that we have it be Harry Potter themed, and I want to be Hagrid.
Now, see, this is the part where I beat on you, because most of your webinars go into off the wall fucking topics about cooking and what you had for dinner the last 3 days. And we're starting to get into that area.
I would say my closing piece for this is, for any MSP or any practitioner out there, start learning about risk and let it flow from there.
Check out those 2 books that John suggested. I tossed them in the chat. There's now two affiliate links in the chat.
Double douche.
Double. Thank you. I appreciate that, Shima. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out here with me today, guys. I really appreciate Shiva, Eric, Zach, Brent, John, and Peter. You guys seriously could not have done this without you. And for those of you that are still watching after 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 19 seconds, thank you too.
What's wrong with you?
Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today.